It's time for the Maximum PC No BS podcast, episode 223 for the week of May 6th, is it? 2014. On today's show, we'll be discussing the Wolfenstein The New Order's crazy system requirements, SanDisk's 4TB enterprise drive, Z97 boards, and more. Oh, and also Maximum PC gets a new managing editor. So strap in. Here we go. So thanks for listening. I'm your host, Jimmy Thang, and joining me are intern Clark Crisp.
How you doing?
Good. And associate editor, Tom McNamara.
Hello, Internet.
And actually, I didn't say this correctly last time, but editor-in-chief, Gordon Mahon.
Doesn't matter.
He's enthusiastic about it.
He's pretty laid back about the whole I'm in charge thing.
Yeah. And introducing Managing Editor Alaina Yee.
Hello.
Alaina, if you've been following Future at all, Future's other publications, you might recognize her name from OXM. She's joined the dark side over here at Maximum PC. And you've been here for about...
We had cookies.
Yes. You've been here for about a week now. How are you liking it so far?
It's good. It's good.
Cool. And can you sort
Cookies are good.
Yeah. Cool. And can you sort of tell us about yourself?
Okay. Well, I was working at Official Xbox Magazine before I came over here, but on the PC side of things, I've always kind of messed around with my systems, pulled out components, put in new ones, build my own systems. But this is actually new for me because before I was always very much a budget PC person because
I think we all were at one point.
Yeah.
I still am.
College.
So.
Yeah. That was just forever for me, though. Just if you couldn't tell from working for Official Xbox Magazine, I'm more of a console gamer. So there was never really a need to put the latest and greatest in my box.
Gotcha. And I guess speaking of that probably leads into our first topic pretty well. Speaking of hardware and I guess low budget stuff, you can't really, if you want to play the new Wolfenstein game coming out, you really can't have a budget rig. According to Bethesda, I think the publisher is, you need Windows 7, 64-bit at least, 50 gigabytes of storage space for the game. I don't know why video game installs are so large now. But really the big kicker is, according to them, they say to get 60 frames per second, you're going to really need an i7.
Yeah, and that means like eight threads, basically.
Right. And so, I mean, which is kind of surprising because it's a shooter. So I know that a lot of strategy games tend to be, tend to require higher end CPUs like Civ and I think Total War. I think, but it makes sense for those games because you're running like multiple tasks. You have numerous armies doing like different tasks at one time. But in a shooter, I mean, do you think that a Core i7 is really necessary? Or do you think it's just badly optimized? I think that's the big question.
Well, I'm guessing that the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were the main platforms for the game in terms of development, and those are both really highly threaded, whereas the PC we've been going on pretty well with just 2 threads, sometimes 4 threads, and we're not used to needing all that parallel processing power, basically. So, I mean, the video card requirements for the game are still there hasn't been a huge spike there. They're saying like you can get
460.
Yeah, GTX 460 or a Radeon HD 6850. They say are fine to get 60 frames per second with what they call an ideal experience. So,
and actually on that note, I should probably also mention that, like up until now, most games still take like an 8800 GT. So 460 is not really that steep by today's standards. I mean, especially for us.
Yeah,
but
it's a little confusing because they said that these are hardware requirements, but then in the comments of that post on their blog, they say, well, these are the requirements to get 60 frames per second with an ideal experience. I guess by that they mean like 1080p and good visual settings.
So it's the recommended specs.
Right, but they call it requirements instead.
They're saying it's, it's recorded. And I checked their listing today, and they haven't made any corrections or anything.
So it really sounds like they want core count. So it's not only i7, but they're also saying a bulldozer. Or
or equivalent AMD processors.
Right. They want eight
cores.
threads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I sort of thought originally it might be just really poor optimization, but in some ways maybe it's actually they have optimized for all the core count of the newer consoles, which is a good thing for PCs anyway, because you've got all these damn cores you're not even using.
I think you made the claim right when we saw Battlefield 4. We saw a game that actually utilizes all these cores. So you made a prediction that quad core would be like the standard.
Yeah, for PC gaming, I think we're sort of there. Where a quad is it used to be people could get by with those core two duos, those Wolfdale parts. They'd overclock them, you'd be fine. But this day and age, it really seems like you need at least four threads. So an i5 without hyperthreading, or
we've seen Battlefield 4 take advantage of 6.
Right, and actually, you definitely Battlefield 4 in some maps. I don't know if it's changed lately because I haven't played it in a month, but on that one map, the one with that great big tower that falls in on itself, you definitely saw an advantage. It ran better if you had 8 threads, so an i7.
It's probably a physics thing, like calculating the collapse of that high-rise
Well, a lot of it was the
tower.
particle effects too, because I noticed definitely the smoke. You'd get into the smoke after the building went down. It would definitely, you would take a hit. So hopefully that's what they're doing with Wolfenstein. I mean, why else would you? It's always tough for developers.
It could be badly optimized as well.
It's tough for developers, though, if you think. Well, but I don't think so. I think it's also it may be they really have done a lot of particle effects, a lot of physics, a lot of just all the cool things that they farmed out to all these cores that they knew they had on a console. So why don't we do it on the PC? But people will complain because a lot of people do not have CPUs with 8 threads available. Right, the vast majority of people don't. So
yeah, we've been telling people for years that hyperthreading isn't really necessary for gaming. Like if you have 4 threads, you're usually going to be fine. And if you're going to spend the extra $100 on your computer, you can buy like a solid state drive or a nicer case or another.
Right, but that's starting to change. Right. So, when's it going to come out?
This month.
Yeah, it comes out
20th. I think.
Yeah, in a couple weeks.
Did anybody play the original Wolfenstein?
Sure.
Okay.
Like 1995.
Like the originally like pre-Doom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
You can get it on Steam actually.
Really, and it runs?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have the same audio?
They're probably emulating some stuff.
Wow, that's cool.
So
yeah, so maybe that'll be a change. Like maybe we'll start seeing more games require quad core parts or even i7s.
Well, but you know what's going to happen? Of course, we all sit around Maximum PC and we're like, why don't they make games that use all? I've got a 6-core CPU with hyperthreading. How come I don't have games that use all this? Right? Even most RTS games, they don't even use none of it, except for the games that Intel helps basically write the code so that you can justify having a $1,000 6-core processor. But
I think using it is different than requiring it, though. Too is what I mean.
Yeah, but if it's not going to run great, if you're not going to get 60 frames a second unless you have an i7 or a bulldozer part, then that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of wondering I do want to see what the reaction is, because we always get this, especially our readers are like, I've got all this hardware, but you never use it. And then finally what happens is, oh, you're using all my hardware, now my system's slow. So I'm going to bitch about that.
Now I need an upgrade.
PC gamers.
Gotta stay ahead of the curve.
You can never satisfy.
Yeah,
PC
exactly.
gamers, yes.
Moving on to the next topic, we have the Z97 board to show you guys if you're watching on the YouTubes. And Clark, you kind of have it there. Can you show us?
Yeah.
What's going on there and talk about the specs? I know we sort of I think we had this exact same board here last time.
Yeah, but we were limited.
We couldn't really talk about it because of NDA stuff, but that's all lifted now.
Not really lifted, but I will say this has been one really sloppy NDA because everybody's been breaking it.
There have been some inconsistencies.
So it's been a lot of fun walking in and looking at all the new boards. Gordon's stack of equipment is actually pouring onto the next desk, which is pretty cool.
Gordon is extremely messy, by the way.
Pretty
if you guys
standard,
don't know.
actually, right?
Yeah.
So obviously we have the 97 boards here, and they talked on it, so I'll touch on it just for a little while. But one of the most exciting things for me is they have an integrated M.2, like right in the center, if you can see that, where it's kind of highlighted.
Yeah, it looks like a stick of RAM, but it's actually in a solid state drive.
Right, so we can actually boot from this, so you can put Windows 7 or Windows 8 on it, and this will boot up in like less than 15 seconds, 10 seconds?
Probably. I mean, I imagine it boots pretty fast.
And that uses, I think, PCI Express lanes?
Yeah, for the M.2, it uses the PCH. It uses the PCIe. It uses that particular configuration. Uses a by2 PCIe Gen 2 off of the PCH, not off of the actual CPU.
So it's not using SATA at all.
No, not at all. Not for the M.2. And the SATA Express, of course, uses sort of both, which
right.
And of course, that motherboard doesn't come with that M.2.
Yeah, I was browsing through the the manual and everything. They said that if you are using the M.2 slot, then you I should pull the boulder of this way. You actually can't use 2 of the SATA slots, and you can't use SATA E if you're using this slot right here. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
How do you even install that? I mean,
there's this middle school right here. I
Okay.
should show everyone. You just take that out, and then
Yeah.
it-
And
okay, gotcha.
M.2 is in different lengths for the capacity, and you can use both sides of it. It's
Right.
mostly for mobile. And the issue you're talking about, I've gone out to see ASUS Gigabyte, and I have an MSI board in, and what it is the M.2 basically is overlaid. I think is the term ASUS use. You can also use shared. It shares the PCI Express lanes with the SATA Express, so you basically can't use SATA Express and use the M.2 slot.
it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, and it's very so the implementation of SATA Express and M.2 at this point is very much like USB 3. So people who remember when they first did USB 3 on LJ 1156 boards and X58 boards, they actually put like a discrete part in them because there was no USB 3 in the actual chipset. They actually added a chip on the motherboard that did all the communications, and oftentimes on the boards that were all loaded up, it was the same thing. The USB 3 slot or USB 3 shared connections off of the South Bridge. So if you were running USB 3 and you plugged in, 2 video cards, then you would actually something would not work. So they basically you have to go through and read the fine print on a lot of the motherboards and make sure
Right.
at this point whether
Just give
it'll
everybody
work.
give everybody a flow chart.
Yeah, actually, you think they would actually make it a little easier? Because people wouldn't know that those things are shared. And I do know some of the configurations of the motherboards, like some of the Asus boards and some of the Gigabyte boards, they just decided not to put the M.2 in because they didn't want to confuse people who, install an M.2 and then suddenly, hey, how come this other thing isn't working?
yeah. So what are the advantages? Why would you want to get one of these over a traditional SSD?
Over a traditional SSD? Or you mean SATA Express or M.2?
Right. Yeah.
Increased speed. You're looking at, 10 gigs a second? So
Yeah, theoretically. I mean, before overhead and all that.
right. So once you factor it in, on the benchmarks, actually, that's one thing we can't talk about. I don't know because this NDA is like every motherboard. This launch basically, every motherboard maker was like, okay, we're going to talk about this, and then you can talk about it, but don't talk about this. And then you go to another motherboard maker and be like, you can talk about this, but don't talk about this. And then the other motherboard, you can talk about this one, but don't talk about this. But then after this date, you can talk about this.
Okay. Well, you don't have to provide numbers or anything like that. It's just
But yeah, it's so 10 gigs a second. So theoretically maybe 800 megs a second on
Okay.
M.2 or SATA Express. And actually, Josh saw when he did the Plex Store M.2 drive that was in a little buy 2 card. He was seeing about 750,
Okay.
about 800 megs a second, which is a little disappointing if you think about it. It's definitely better than
That's about
550.
that's about twice
Yeah,
though, isn't
it's
it?
definitely faster than
70% faster, but
Okay.
Right.
you're basically topping out the speed of this implementation of M.2 and SATA Express at launch, which is, to me, very disappointing in a lot of ways because you're sort of like, okay, we're free of the SATA bottleneck finally, and then now we're bottlenecked at M.2. And
I guess we'll have to wait for M.3.
well, no, I mean the nice thing is, so we get off of, we finally have M.2, we finally have SATA Express. So now we have interfaces for. We finally have interfaces for solid state and next generation memory, right? So before the one of the things that's really kind of handcuffed SATA and SSDs is they have to use hard drive protocols, they have to use hard drive connections, and we know hard drives they don't evolve at the same speed as SSDs. That's why nothing has moved forever. So now that we are finally on M.2 and SATA Express, it is an improvement. It is a little disappointing in my book, but it's very easy to go to, move that M.2 from a buy 2 to maybe a buy 4 configuration next year, or to move it to a Gen 3. So you move that to a PCI Express Gen 3, and you suddenly have 20 gigs, right? So you double the transfer rate, and that gives you, and then you just add more lanes. It's very easy. So, but then the best thing is, it's no longer locked to hard drives, right? So now it could kind of grow at a far faster speed. In fact, this last week I participated in a call with Intel. They had a bunch of journalists on to talk about. I can't remember already because it was last week. It was next generation non-volatile. I forget. It's NVMe. I forget. It's the next generation non-volatile memory, right? So we're looking at the memory technologies beyond NAND that will be used for computers to store, and they were saying the other thing is that we also have to leave behind, which we're not quite there yet. It's the command sets. There's still a lot of legacy communication protocols that are used with all these interfaces. Like, so if you PCI Express, so if you put build a great big NAND PCI Express, they basically have to build their own drivers, and there's no driver, so they have to build all their driver sets and everything. And a lot of times they're using sort of really old-fashioned ATA communication protocols, things that were designed for hard drives. So with the next generation NVMe, I forget, I just can't remember. We're gonna move beyond. The speed will just get like you're gonna get to the point where your SSD or whatever storage device in 5 years possibly could rival that of a RAM drive, or today's RAM drives anyway. I doubt whatever we're running for main memory in 5 years will resemble the speed we have now, but
it'll be DDR7.
Yeah, I mean, imagine
And
getting a
that's
storage
fast.
device that not DDR7, but imagine in, 5 years having 5 gigs of 5 gigabytes, not gigabit transfer speeds out of your storage device, and it's not unrealistic, I think. So
Yeah, we've been held back for a while with the mechanical hard drives.
How are the prices of the sticks that are available now?
M.2 is a little pricier, but it's not as horrible as
Like, how much would one, like, I don't know.
it'd be similar to basically a standard SSD.
Okay.
So a 512.
So nothing like too crazy.
Not too crazy. There's definitely a small price premium.
Okay.
So not horrible.
Gotcha. And,
I mean, that is, of course, the big thing for Z97. We got off on this tangent.
cool.
Clark was doing his Z97 thing.
Anything else about the board we should know
Um,
that you can talk about?
I can go
It's
on.
red.
Not like Gordon. Gordon covered definitely a lot of it. Yeah. What do you want to talk about the color scheme or something like that?
Well, red is a big thing now. Did I get to talk about that last time?
It's technically called a Black Edition motherboard.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if this one is a Black Edition. This is actually not a Black Edition board. That's
Isn't
Gigabyte's new thing where they are taking a motherboard and then they basically test it for 1 week. They actually fire it up in a system. They are going to mine Litecoin, I believe, in a great big room that they built. And then you will be able to, when you buy your Black Edition motherboard, it will have been stress tested for 1 week.
But I think we have one of those in the office.
Yes,
right?
we do have a Black
And-
Edition.
And oddly enough, it's not all black.
Yeah,
It's kinda
that's interesting to me. I was a little confused. I thought it was supposed to be all black. At least I thought when I saw the board down in Vegas, it was all black. So,
Okay.
but red is the new black, I guess. All the gaming
Orange
boards
is the
you'll
new
notice.
black, Gordon. You should know that if
Yeah,
you're
I
watching
forget.
Netflix. Moving on to.
Oh wait, actually, there's one more thing I want to add. So we had a reader last time. He says, "Am I screwed on my Z87 with Devil's Canyon?" Right? Because as we know, Devil's Canyon's new CPU coming out it's a Haswell on steroids.
to refresh as well.
Refresh Haswell parts. There are actually some other parts. God, I can't even keep this straight. There are some new Haswell parts coming out. They are refreshed, but then there's also Devil's Canyon, which is the super duper overclockable part. And apparently, now I got this confused because we've been given so much information that I thought Devil's Canyon would work on Z87. It's not, and now I have clarified just to make sure, but Devil's Canyon officially does not work on Z87 boards. But it's one of the things like pretty much probably most of the high-end Z87 boards will work perfectly fine if the motherboard vendor goes back and kind of does their work.
Well, the chips are physically Haswell, aren't they?
Yeah. So, but
It's all about
I
driver
think
support.
I think it's possible because there's They do intend them to be overclockable parts, highly overclockable. That maybe they changed the voltage requirements that you really do need a board that's super heavy duty and beefy, right?
Lots of phases, yeah. Okay.
So you've got one of these beefier gaming boards, probably great if you buy your budget $85 micro ATX boards. It's not going to work. But then, are you really going to be buying a Devil's Canyon for that?
Yeah.
Cool. Going back to the subject of storage, Tom would like to share something about SanDisk's 4 terabyte enterprise drive.
Yes, SanDisk has a 4 terabyte enterprise drive.
I spoiled the story.
Damn it!
Next topic.
Okay, we're done.
No, what's interesting about this drive is that it's a solid state drive, not a mechanical hard drive. And it's really interesting to watch the solid state storage thing catching up so quickly to mechanical drives, because mechanical drives, we have just started the move from 4 terabytes to 6 terabytes, and the SSDs have just entered 4 terabytes. So it seems like
It's catching up pretty quick.
yeah,
It's so affordable too for that 4 terabyte SSD.
they don't even list a price or a release date or anything.
I think I saw online that a 4 terabyte SSD was going for like $500, which actually doesn't sound.
No.
Yeah, that's
No.
I saw that on the internet.
You're not going to see this.
somewhere.
You're not going to see this drive.
Where? Because I'm going to go buy one.
It was
right
it was like on Reddit. I think I saw one.
Yeah, I
Oh.
don't
It
think
was
so.
like one of
because
those
1
stick post
terabyte's
things.
$500.
Yeah.
This drive, you're not going to see this guy at retail. This is just for Google
Headline marketing purposes.
data centers, cloud storage, whatever the it's not going to be over at Best Buy. So, but I think at the rate the solid state drives are going, they're going to be larger than mechanical drives in a few years.
Well, I
Seems
don't
like
know.
maybe not cheaper.
I don't think so.
Probably never cheaper, but
4 terabyte drive is what? $180 now?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is probably going to be minimum $2,000. Well, if it were
how
just
about-
a consumer 4 terabyte SSD would be $2,000. But this is an enterprise drive, and those guys have real money.
well, yeah. I mean, in terms of what's more appealing, you definitely want a mechanical drive if you're getting something that gets 4 to 6 terabytes. I'm saying in terms of the technology, it seems like solid state is outpacing mechanical drives.
They've definitely been ahead in technology. I think capacity isn't really, this is just sort of like a showpiece kind of thing.
Yeah, and then there's the other question of, do you want to put 4 terabytes of data on an SSD? And of course, it's less after formatting, like 3.5 terabytes, but still, it's a lot of data
Well, it's
to put on a drive whose technology isn't exactly proven in the way the mechanical drives are.
Well, if it's an enterprise class drive and they're selling it, then hopefully they've done their homework.
So the readers that don't know, enterprise class is more reliable than the consumer grade.
Yeah,
because it's Star Trek.
This uses SAS or SATA interface. SAS is basically the fancy thing. Serial attached SCSI.
I think I'm kind of with Tom. I'm kind of optimistic about the future of SSDs, and just looking at these 4 terabyte drives, I think for most people that's going to be enough space, and then the prices will come down. So
A lot of people can get by 500 gig hard drives, surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean they're not
maybe in laptops.
with a 500 gig mechanical drive. They do tend to be a lot slower than a 1 terabyte mechanical drive, but with solid state 500 doesn't seem to be any drop off in performance versus 1 terabyte or even 250. Those can be plenty fast.
But I mean, just for capacity purposes, I'm always surprised when I go over to somebody's house and I will have built a machine, 3 years ago with a used 120 gig hard drive, and it'll be 85% free space,
I mean, it just depends though who you're going, like where you're going. Like my mom in particular, she's still in 1996, so she tries really hard not to put anything on her hard drive. That's
because she's storing all her torrents on a separate hard drive.
I would tell her to invest in Apple and Google.
Yeah, the
Drop the eBay stock. I don't know what was big in 1996.
Yeah,
The first boot. She's still finishing the first first issue.
And moving on to the next topic, CyberPower has announced their new Fang mini PC, and Alaina is going to tell us a little bit more about that.
I didn't know it was gonna be my turn.
yeah. Well, I guess we go. She didn't know this beforehand. I guess we go around in a half circle, starting from.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So the Fang Mini PC, if you guys aren't familiar with it, it's actually shaped very similarly to the
Like a fang.
It would be nice if it was, but no, it just basically looks like a kind of like a reskinned.
Intel NUC.
Yeah.
NUC. I still don't know.
Bricks Pro, I think.
Yeah, Bricks Pro. Yeah, that's what I would go with, honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly, the specs aren't too different than at least one of the gigabyte bricks that have been announced. This one can support AMD 8557M quad-core chip.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's got some heft to it.
Is that a Kaveri part? I can't keep up with AMD's numbers.
Yeah, I think it is. It's one of the APUs.
Okay. Yeah, I think an APU makes sense in a build like that. You know, you can't really squeeze in. It's hard to squeeze in dedicated graphics, right?
Well, no, they do have Gigabyte does have one that's there's one with an APU and discrete AMD graphics, and they have one with an Intel i5 and
I think this one
Iris
actually
Pro
might have a
discrete.
discrete
Is it?
graphics chip.
Okay. I believe it also comes in Intel flavor as well, with Iris Pro graphics, which would be Intel's graphics.
See. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they were advertising that as something that could play in like 4K movies and stuff like that really well.
They're basically trying to tout it as something that's small but still powerful.
Right. Do you think something like that would be good for, video editing on the go, Gordon? I know we were kind of talking about...
not with the APU, but...
No, I guess with Intel's equivalent.
Yeah, because when we were kind of batting around this idea of a miniature, portable video workstation, I think, you're looking at a full-on Haswell part, quad-core. I think it definitely has enough. The issue is whether Iris Pro is enough, and generally it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what probably would be a better solution is the version with an i5 and the NVIDIA discrete.
Mobile.
Of course, the one of the problems with Premiere is they don't support all the newer graphics cards. So people, of course, you can go in and hack it and make it support, but it gets a little weird with the GPU acceleration for video encoders.
Now, I think we discussed this before, away from the podcast, but does it use if the system has a discrete graphics card, does it switch over to the card, or does it use both CPU and GPU in tandem?
You mean for what? For
like video encoding.
Usually you can't use the integrated. It's going to use your discrete.
No,
because a lot of the Adobe products were CUDA based.
Okay, so
is it like a laptop where you switch between graphics?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to see whether that screws with Premiere and Photoshop, because if you have integrated graphics and it switches back and forth in real time between discrete.
Yeah, I didn't know how that worked.
I would imagine it would always use the discrete, and you can actually set, of course, in your profiles for NVIDIA. I haven't seen the AMD switchable graphics, but you can tell it if you're running Photoshop to always use discrete graphics. So.
Okay, and according to what you don't really need a high-end video card.
No, you need a reasonably fast one, but you don't need a Titan. But honestly, like a 560, 660 for a lot of video editing is perfectly good.
Cool. All right, we're gonna move on to reader questions now, and starting from Facebook, Donald Hall wants to know: the new motherboards are coming out that support the Z97 platform, which we've discussed here. Is it a good time to buy, or should we wait for the new processors and RAM and etc.?
Well, if you're building a new system, then I would go with Z97, but I wouldn't buy a new motherboard if you already have a system.
Okay.
The two platforms aren't different enough to justify it.
Yeah, Z97 is Z87 plus 10, right?
Yeah, he doesn't really say what he has.
Right.
He's just saying that should he hop on one of these guys right now, or
yeah,
should he wait until the refresh and all that stuff?
I think I just banged on the table, so that shakes the cameras. But I think
I got yelled at for that last time on YouTube, so I'm like, I'm not touching this.
If I've been holding off, so your choices right now, right? So you got 3 choices: AMD, which is a different world. But for Intel, you either do Z97, which is going to be the platform for the next 12 to 14 months, maybe, until Skylake comes out, probably end of next year, so a year and a half. If you can't wait, go ahead and do this with a Haswell part. Or you wait till the end of this year when they come out with Haswell E, but that's, you got to put up serious money to get into that one.
Gotcha. Next question comes from Chris. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right. Louise. When will
guys call him Chris?
Yeah, Chris L. When will G-Sync be readily available?
That's a good question.
They're working on it.
I mean, technically they're out.
Yeah, aren't they for sale?
Are they pretty back ordered? Let me
Are
check.
they? I mean, I haven't really heard anybody.
So when I went to NVIDIA last Friday, I was talking to Sean Wicks there, and he was saying that NVIDIA partnered with like basically the hardware manufacturer that supplies components to like BenQ, ASUS, and all the other ones. So they're saying that they've been working on that. No time frame, but they're looking to put this into a lot of different manufacturers.
So I searched for G-Sync on Newegg, and I'm not finding a single thing. I don't really get it. I mean, is that because they're selling out too quick, or they haven't manufactured enough units?
Well, okay, I'm actually at GeForce.com, and it says what you can do, which is the interesting thing, is you can either send your monitor or buy a monitor. The Asus, remember they had the high refresh rate Asus panels, those 24-inch, the VG248QE. You send it to either Digital Storm, Falcon, Main Gear, or Overlord computer, and they will add the module to it and send it back to you, I guess.
I'm guessing that's not cheap.
Yeah, how much is that?
Let me see. They were sold as early access programs and build my system with G-Sync.
Yeah, so for those that don't know what G-Sync is, it's a monitor technology from NVIDIA that essentially syncs up the frame rate that you're getting in a video game with your monitor's refresh rate. So what ends up happening is that you might be playing a game that's running at 30 frames per second.
Or less.
Yeah, and I mean like
20, 15.
Yeah, and it will look relatively smooth.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It's like I've seen it in person a couple times now, and I've seen games that run at like a solid 30 frames per second, but it actually, oddly enough, it actually feels like you're playing at 60. It's really bizarre.
Manufacturers might just be waiting for AMD's deal, their FreeSync thing.
Oh, interesting. No, I'm at Digital Storm site just to break in here. They say you can purchase monitor or request the install service. Module install service is $300. Monitor with G-Sync, and it's normally about a $200 monitor, is $500.
Yeah.
And they both say pre-order. So I'm guessing.
That's a lot of.
Oh wait, but it says pre-order. But if I click on it, it says I can check out and buy it.
Wouldn't that money be better spent just getting a better graphics card so you don't have to worry about it?
Well,
that's what I'm thinking. Like a GTX 770
you know,
with that kind of money.
It's supposed to even help even at higher refresh rates, because sometimes you'll be playing at 65, 7 frames a second. It'll drop down to whatever.
Right.
So it's supposed to help that look better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd rather buy a $300 video card.
And also, it's true. Like it sort of defeats the purpose a little bit if you have a monster video card, but it also helps. I mean, like, so that essentially means like if you can get 120 frames per second, that means you can also get 120 hertz per second as well, right? Theoretically. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's your traditional 60 hertz monitor can't do that. It doesn't matter if you have a 780 Ti,
right,
or what have you. Okay, moving on to Twitter questions. Dev Rex, I think. He asks, my 2-year-old system needs a thorough dusting / cleaning. What's the best way to go about it? And we actually just wrote up an article on how to do this, and I'll link this in the story and try to remember to do it in the YouTube comments as well. But if you Google like how to physically clean your PC, you'll find Maximum PC's article there.
Yep.
Kevin P. Haney asks, what MOBO can fit Tri-SLI, EVGA, Ultra Classified 560 Ti cards and a sound card?
Well, you'd need 4 PCI Express slots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I would buy a board that's 4-way SLI,
Yeah.
or 4-way Crossfire.
Okay. So just any board should be able to take care of.
As long as it supports
4-way SLI.
4-way, then it shouldn't be a problem.
Gotcha. Cool.
Although there are weird things, though, right? Because if you're doing like I don't know how. Well, it shouldn't be a problem. You know, like those PLX chips do induce a little bit of latency, but it probably shouldn't affect the sound too much.
No.
Okay. Last question on Twitter comes from Jeffrey Borrero. He asks, how much can you overclock AMD's APU A107850K for stable performance on GPU and CPU? I'm not sure what he means by that last bit, but
he's just wondering how far people have taken their 7850Ks, which I did not look into.
yeah, and that can also vary.
Yeah.
as well, couldn't it, depending on silicone?
We've used it in a couple builds, but I haven't tried overclocking it very much. So
Yeah, so you could probably. Are you trying to Google that?
I'm
right
just seeing what people have gotten. People have gotten up to mid-4s, but
Yeah.
that's going to depend on everything: power
Right.
supply, motherboard, and frankly the overclocker.
yeah, and if
So-
you're using air cooling or a closed-loop cooler or
Right.
refrigerator.
And I feel like this topic isn't really talked about that much, but there can be a lot of variants as well. I mean, not all parts are bent equally as well.
Yeah.
I definitely know that's on the GPU side. Would you say that's pretty similar on the CPU side as well?
Yeah, it's the same, especially on Haswell. I know the guidance out of ASUS because they, before the Haswell part came out, they went and they go ahead and they'll grade like 200 to 300 different of the CPUs, 200 to 300 chips, and they'll kind of give us guidance in the media, which is it's really useful because who the hell has gone through 300 chips? Maybe Intel, but they're not going to tell us. And they'll tell you, hey, these parts for the most part are going to land, 4.5, 4.3, and the guidance from ASUS, which at one point I thought they didn't want anybody to talk about, but I know others in the press have. But I think they said 4.3 for a really shitty chip, and then 4.8s for a really good chip. So Haswell was very much all over the map.
Gotcha. Cool, and we're just going to move on to the editor's pick of the weeks. I'll start. My pick is an Android app called Dehumanize Your Friends. And if you're familiar with the game Cards Against Humanity, it's
Oh God,
exactly that.
that game was horrible.
In the best possible way.
Yes. Dehumanize Your Friends. It's free. It's exactly like Cards Against Humanity. I think they even have the same cards as well. So I'm not sure if it's available for iPhone. I think last time I checked, it's only for Android. But it's kind of surprising because it's really hard to acquire the physical cards. Like you actually have to buy it from their store online. I think
They sell out constantly.
Okay.
You can make them yourself. They give you all the
Yeah,
Right.
just print them.
right. It's just not as cool as having the actual cards.
Right. So I think we had it set up one time. My friends and I had it set up so that it was actually playing on the big screen TV, and we all had our individual phones and all that stuff too. So that's pretty fun, and it's free. So that's my pick of the week. And Clark, why don't we start with you next? Or do you not have a pick?
I do.
Okay. You hit that face like, uh-oh.
Yeah. No, it'll be quick.
Okay.
My brother showed me this new app called Poop Salary.
Oh, you're telling us about this
I was
on the
talking
office.
about it. It's kind of
That's pretty
ridiculous.
funny.
Yeah. So it's an Android app. I don't know if it's on iPhone, and you basically input your default wage. So I
Can you
make.
show the camera?
Yeah, I make actually 0, but sometimes it's kind of fun to tinker around.
So I guess
Dream.
the idea is that so you press the start poop button
Yeah.
when you're about to sit down, like right before you sit down, and then as soon as you get up, you hit stop, and then it'll tell you how much you generate based on your yearly earnings. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So
yeah.
I mean, you can calculate. So let's say you're at work and you need to take a break, and you go to the bathroom and you drop a load, and you have your work poop app, and by the end of the year, you can see how much money you made on the can.
All right, so let's try. Can you give us a quick demo? Like, let's say you make $100,000 a year.
Well, how long is the poop?
And then you say, let's go. Let's
Well, I think this is supposed to
Let's poop-
calculate the man hours,
let's poop
right?
for
Like how much
let's
you're
poop for 5 seconds.
wasting.
No,
on
that's
that?
ridiculous.
Okay, we'll make.
Well, we're not gonna sit here for like a minute
And poop.
and be like,
No, okay, let's.
you have a very good and nutritious fibrous diet. That's how you get away with it.
Okay, let's have a look.
No, that's not useful. Okay. Bill Gates is the richest man in the world, I think. That can't be right. Anyway, he's worth $76 billion.
Let's actually go with his number.
So
let's go
put $76 billion in that phone.
This is a good one. This is a good
We
one.
need to know how much this man makes in the can.
How many zeros is that? That's 6 zeros, right?
76 billion.
But that's not his
No.
salary. That's just how much money he has. In order for Poop's
9
salary
zeros.
to work, you have to give us. You have to
Yeah.
enter his salary.
Doesn't matter. He's fucking. He's 76 billion. He's worth 76
This
billion.
this math is flawed. Any mathematician is just like, this is so wrong. But let's assume he makes $76 billion a year.
Oh,
every
shit.
year.
every second is $10,000.
I'm
So
in
he
the
gets
wrong
on the
business.
phone, right? He's like, I can't get fucking Windows 8 to install, Balmer. Hang on. And then he goes. That's just he goes in. Say what? So like what? Like a 10-minute poop? Oh, you can't actually just punch it. You can't have it.
No.
No, he has to hit stop. He has to hit like
Yeah.
I'm
It's
done.
It's like a
I'm
timer.
done.
It's
It's
a
a
counter.
timer. Yeah, it's not
Oh,
a
I see.
calculator.
Yeah.
Whoa. That means you have to touch your phone after you've pooped.
You have to.
Well, you don't. You're you know, you wash your hands or you hit the stop button and then
so that's not. But then you're counting going to the sink, though. I thought it was simply.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the app listen?
You gotta touch
Why
it
doesn't
with,
it listen?
You gotta touch it with poopy hands.
You've got all those sensors in these phones.
You
right?
can touch it and then wipe, right?
Yeah, this is probably too much.
So anyway, it's called Poop Salary. So go check it out.
That's the greatest transition.
Oh,
all right, Tom.
My editor's choice is actually a website. And earlier today, I was trying to figure out if I downloaded all of my Steam games, like in my entire library, like how much space would that take up on my hard drive? And it turns out that there's this website I found that you may already know about, and it's called My Steam Gauge. That's Gauge spelled Gauge. And you go in there and you can enter in any account name, and it'll take like 30 seconds to do its calculations. Then it'll tell you how much space you would need to download all your stuff, and approximately the retail value of all of the Steam games that you've bought, how long your account's been around, and how many hours have been recorded of your playtime. Because Steam didn't originally count all your playtime. It wasn't only until, I don't know, 2006, 2007. So, but I thought it was pretty entertaining, and you can also get this like JavaScript bookmarklet over the site that will calculate how much you have actually spent on Steam, based on you have to log into your Steam account and hit the bookmarklet. And it'll
Are you
tell
sure this thing doesn't just steal your Steam password?
Yeah, I was just
the bookmarklet. It's all you can read all the JavaScript code, and you might not understand JavaScript that well. I mean, I don't, but the code is all out there for people to see and question. So
Cool. What's the name of that app?
well,
website.
the website is mysteamgauge.com.
Gotcha.
How many logged hours do you have? Just curious.
Actually, I think it was like 1,500 hours, but this is like a 10-year-old account. I've had it since like 2004.
Jeez, 1,500 hours.
That's not that much.
And if
1,500
I
hours.
downloaded everything, it would be 1.6 terabytes.
nice.
So that seems like a lot. It's less than 400, fewer than 400 games.
It's not too bad in the wake of what's coming now.
Yeah.
So I mean, Wolfenstein's 50 gigs. So
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
another thing is I can rank all of my games in my entire library according to install size. The list will rejigger, so that's pretty handy. I like that kind of information. I don't know why.
Why is Wolfenstein 50 gigs?
Is that the largest? I thought like Titanfall.
Call of Duty was huge.
Well, Titanfall apparently it includes all of the audio data for like a dozen different languages.
Oh.
And it's also
So
uncompressed, right?
So it was basically never localized.
These are like dot wave.
Well,
files.
it's uncompressed after it gets installed. The download is like 17 gigs, and then it decompresses to like, I don't know, a lot.
Like 45, I think. 45, and then I think 50. I think this is the largest. 50 gigs, right? I don't think I've
Yeah,
heard
the
of a game.
download, I think, for Wolfenstein is much smaller. The footprint on your hard drive is about 50 gigabytes.
Are we to the point, though, you kind of wish, like, oh, can I get the Blu-ray version of this game? Because,
I know.
man, I wouldn't mind this on a quad-layer Blu-ray disc, because it's
See, the
fucking 100
the
gigs.
console people, they don't have this problem.
No, they do. I mean,
they
the
can
game,
buy it on Blu-ray.
the game is like 47 gigs on like.
Right, but they
PlayStation.
can still go to
we
a
can
store.
Still buy, console gamers can still
You're
buy
still
it
a
on
console
disc.
gamer.
I know.
Yeah, it's okay.
I know. This transition is going to be a little confusing for a while, folks.
Yeah.
It's like we, us, you, me, what?
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So wait, I don't have a next gen console, but to my understanding, like even if you bought the disc, there was still some sort of installation process.
There is,
Okay.
but for the most part, it's not the same as still having to download the game. So,
Okay.
like, if you're like me and have only access to a really crappy DSL connection, it's really not time effective for me to try to download, say, Titanfall. It's much
Okay.
better for me to have it on disc.
So if the game says it takes up 47 gigs or whatever, I don't know, is that to download it and install it, and would it be
Yes.
less if you had the disc Like how many?
No, it's a full install, and it's actually one of the contention points right now for Xbox One owners, because you have a fixed 500 gigabyte drive in the Xbox One. You can't swap it out. You can't change it.
You can't put an external hard drive in.
They are working on supporting that through
Peasants!
software. No, there's definitely things about the console that need a little love, and that's one of them. So when you go on Xbox Live to say like download Rise or Titanfall or Battlefield, it tells you how big the install file is, and that's basically how much space it's going to take on your hard drive. Period.
Now, can you preload a game before it's released? Like, can you pre-download it and then it unlocks?
No.
Oops.
Yeah, I know. That's the one advantage that PC gamers have over.
Yeah,
I imagine they could fix that.
If they wanted to, I'm sure they could. But I think there's a lot of other things on their list right now of things to add to the dashboard.
Gotcha. Gordon?
Not to make this too phone heavy, but I finally upgraded my phone to the S5, Samsung S5, and this is one of the best modes of this phone. And if you have an S5, I recommend you show it to any of your iPhone phones. But it has an iPhone mode. People don't know about the hidden iPhone mode. And
he's been showing
have you seen the iPhone 5
to everyone
iPhone
this week.
mode, Clark?
No.
So the S5.
We haven't talked about this before, right? Because I think we feel like we talked about it, but I don't know
Well,
if
he's
it was
just been
have
going
not.
around to
I've
all of
been
us
showing
this
everybody.
week.
So Clark
and showing
hasn't seen it,
everybody.
so it's
Okay.
new to him.
All right.
So if people just listening, I'm holding my Samsung S5, and frankly, I'll talk about this later. But so I'm now going to put it into iPhone mode. So that's the normal screen, right?
Okay.
Which
So
is
now I
what's
wipe my
resolution?
thumb on it. You have to enable it. Oh, it's a 1080p. It's like so it's 1080p. So whoops. Let me turn this back on. So I'm going to enable the iPhone mode. See, now you see for people who
Are you sure it's that big?
this, I don't know. I couldn't get it any smaller. I mean, but for like if you're an
I think
iPhone
it's
4
4 inches.
That's as scrappy
you're-
as I can make it. Sorry.
that's as small as I could actually make it. So now it's like an iPhone because it's a little tiny, teeny screen, right?
Yeah, Gordon.
Jeez, it, like,
Gordon
eats
is
it
not
up.
making this up. The maximum resolution of any iPhone is like 11.
It's not even 720p.
It's not even HD. It's like 1150
But
by.
it's Retina.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
They call it Retina, and it makes it even more confusing.
Yeah.
They tell me any sharper, and it will literally cut your eyeballs out.
Yeah. No, so that's a mode, but it's actually the one-handed mode. So like the phone is big; it's got this big 5-inch screen. So if you can't use the phone, you can actually just make it smaller. So what it does is it shrinks down and only uses, I don't know, like a third of the screen. And it seems to me, and I compared it to my friend's iPhone 4, it's about the size of an iPhone 4 screen. So anybody who has an S5, you can enable the one-handed operation, right? And then you can go up to any of your iPhone friends and you can say, look, my phone has an iPhone mode, and see, look, it makes the screen tiny like yours. So and then that will just piss them off. And I've tried it on a few iPhone people, and it really does piss them off because those iPhone screens are fucking tiny.
Well, I guess one of the reasons why it sort of smacks Apple upside the head is for a long time, I think they said that they designed their phone with the human hand in mind. I think they basically said that.
Yeah, whatever.
Like any
Well,
phone larger than what we
To
have.
be fair, I mean, come on, like my hands are not nearly the same size as like man
Yeah,
paws.
but you use
What
two hands.
What size is that? Is that 12, 13 inches? That screen?
What?
Diagonal.
No, it's a 5-inch, 5.1 or something like that on the S5.
Yeah.
He didn't get the note, so
Yeah, the Note. Yeah, they didn't. No, yeah, I get that. That's just
Yeah.
marketing, right? That's like,
Right.
come on.
And even if it was, what my point was, even if it was true, like Samsung found a pretty elegant way to overcome that, yet also providing users with a larger screen as well. So you sort of
Sure.
get the best of both worlds. I suppose.
Right, but the Apple way is just to make you use what they think is best. So I think that's a great mode if you have the S5. So I'm recommending the iPhone mode on the S5.
I'm pretty
so
sure
you can-
Samsung doesn't call it that.
I do because it's perfect. I mean, it's
I
like
would if
they
I was Samsung.
well, I think they have enough litigation on their hands right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying
They call it the I mode.
yeah, they get really angry because my friend is like, I use S4s at work for work, and it's screen's too big. Screen's too big. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Right.
Why would you complain about that?
I know. I don't understand. It's like what? I mean,
So okay,
I guess you're rolling like
Maybe
a
he has-
22-inch
I c-
TV
I
at
could
home
see-
for your
I
main
could-
living
Small
room,
hands.
and what?
I could see it getting too big if you have trouble like carrying it. Like Sony's like Xperia Z, whatever, is like almost 7 inches. I mean,
Right.
That's. I mean, it gets to a point where it gets outrageous.
But at that point, it's a tablet. Then you don't even have to have a tablet, though.
Right.
Plus, you keep it in your purse.
I've heard that those large ass phones have been cutting it into tablet sales.
Yeah, they have been.
You know, because you don't need a tablet if your frickin' phone is already 7-8 inches across.
Yeah.
You know, what's the point?
Right. All right. It's time for Gordon's rant. So I hope you're prepared. Here we go.
Something's vibrating.
Class, listen up. Gordon's going to present his rant of the week.
Who's the dumbass who came up with this idea? I mean, what kind of a fucking loser? You're wasting your fucking time. Total fucking loser. I hate all this shit.
I gotta look up what the hell you can be mad about here. Oh, have you ever done this? No, I realize this though. So, since we're all nerds, I mean, we're all nerds, right?
Right.
And then you always like, you get those people that call up or send you email or text message, hey, the internet's not working.
Oh,
Okay.
God.
Then there's like, you tried rebooting, and like, and then you realize that like it's sort of like okay, why don't I just come over? Because I'll come over later tonight because I'm not going to sit here for 10 minutes and then walk you through every single fucking step. Like, do this. Have you turned off your DSL or cable modem? Have you done this? And it's just like, but they still want you like, okay, what can I do? It's like, okay, and I think last time I was like, okay, turn off your computer. But then, you'll tell them something like, it's not. You'll just say like, not just reboot, but it's like turn off your computer and then wait 5 minutes, because that gives me 5 minutes of not having to deal with it, right? Okay, now you've done that. Now why don't you, reboot it again, turn it off again, and then unplug that from the wall, and then wait 5 minutes, and then you sort of just give them things to do, so they don't keep like, okay, what can I do? It's like you can't do anything. That's why you're calling me. Why,
Yeah.
It's got the yellow exclamation thing. What does that mean?
Right. I mean, I just think it's a great method. It's just like, okay, you need to wait half an hour. That's a good one. I should do that next time. Just wait half an hour and then get back to me.
I think Comcast wants you to reset your modem. They often tell me that.
Yeah, they want you to do that, but they, you know what? They do the same fucking shit to you, because like, yeah, I've turned off the fucking modem. All right, I've turned it off. It's like, well, did you wait 2 minutes? It's like, no, I don't need to. It's powered off. There's no power. What do you think is going to happen? Like, it's going to keep running for 2 minutes? But they're doing that. Their tech support's doing that to you to make you fucking cool your heels.
Well, they'll put you on hold and they say, yeah, I need to get to another customer. I need to escalate this.
Right.
They're just making you sit.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So
They're
use
drinking
their
a cappuccino.
methods.
Yeah, it's good. Now, there's so many things that can go wrong with internet connection. Just the other day, it was taking me like 2 to 3 hours to figure out what was wrong with my internet, and I figured out it was because I have Wi-Fi internet at this particular computer, and apparently my phone was too close to the Wi-Fi radio, and it was screwing up the signal.
Huh. What?
As soon as I moved my phone like away from the Wi-Fi adapter, it was fine again.
On your modem or your
router?
Wow,
the adapter.
Huh?
Apparently was interfering.
Collision detection.
And then there was my computer's also right next to an air vent in the wall, and if the duct, the metal in the duct can interfere with the Wi-Fi.
I thought you said the
signal
duct.
as well.
Like if the duct bites on it.
DUCT, air duct.
You know what? Actually, this brings up a good one, because this is a perfect example. Like, because you ever notice you get around people who work on computers, nerds, then you're like, oh, well, I got one for you. You think that's good? It's just like that scene from Jaws, right? It's like, well, that's not a scar. Look at this scar. I got this from a thresher shark, right? No one here watched fucking Jaws. All right, so here's the thing.
I got your reference.
I got this. All right, so like I went to help somebody at another publication here. Their computer wasn't working. Don't know why. It just stopped working. I was like, well, did you try the power supply? He goes, yeah. In fact, this is a different power supply, right? So I'm over there unplugging shit, making sure all this. Like, fuck, something's messed up. I'll come back tomorrow with a new CPU, and we'll see if the CPU's dead or the motherboard took a shit, right? So we eliminated everything else. And I was like, I grabbed the CPU out of the cabinet, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try another power supply, because I have no idea where he got that power supply from. So here's one that I know that works. I bring that over. I put that in the machine. bam, he had 2 bad power supplies in a row.
Oh, wow.
So he had the dead power supply, and then he put another dead power supply in it.
See, those are more hardware errors. We're talking like ID10T errors.
I'm just saying that's a pretty good scar, though, right? You got to say, whoa,
Yeah.
you got a better story than that?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I think I have. I don't know if I can top that, but I remember a long time ago reading one of your columns, Gordon, was as a, sometimes it is probably better to suggest people to just buy the fucking PC,
Right.
so you're not on the line for like a 3 a.m.
Oh,
call.
yes.
So I build a computer for a friend, and I actually write something up like we learned in school, like, document all this shit that they need. And so I give it to the guy, and he looks over and he gives it back to me. And we build this PC, and it runs fantastic. And he gets his PC, right? It's so fucking fast. It's awesome, right? It has an SSD. It has a Haswell 4670.
Right.
Wow.
And he's just like, well, I can't get my email. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's just like, well, my email's not there. And I say, okay, like, did you are you using a web service, web email? He's like, no, like, I don't know what that is. Usually it's just on my computer. I click it. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. It was unbelievable. So
What happened?
well, apparently he doesn't know his password for his email, and he uses like the desktop client of Outlook. And so usually
Is he like 65 years old?
Yes.
Oh.
So it's I know I shouldn't have fucking done this. So it's like traditionally you just double click the client on the desktop, and
Right,
boom,
right,
your Outlook shows up. Well, now all of his emails and contacts aren't showing up, so it's like super like fuck me, right?
Did you have the old hard drive, or did you install over it?
I fucking formatted
Oh,
it.
see that is the classic thing you never do. I always just because the new hard drives always going to be faster.
Yeah.
It's always going to be larger. Take the old hard drive because there's one fucking file
so
that
that's
they
his
will need.
So that's his work PC then.
Yeah, it's like his home office computer.
But now, but did you like? Oh, this is awesome. You can go buy this Dell for $800, or I could build it for you for $650.
Exactly.
And then you can call me every week with all of your stupid fucking questions every day. Yes, that for $150. Like, just go out and buy a machine from an
Right.
OEM.
So I learned a pretty important lesson. So
I think if
that's
I
my
was,
scar.
That's a good one.
That's
That's a
my
good
scar.
one.
dude, that's a really good one. Like
What?
if I was you, I'd feel like really bad.
Why?
Just because I erased all the guy's data.
No. I saved his photos. It's just email. It's just not fucking.
Yeah, I mean his emails are all gone.
Yeah,
But he should be using like a web-based client, anyways.
That's what I assumed. You should never
Well,
It's
assume
his
anything.
fault, Clark. You helped him.
If he's
Now he needs to
using,
use his Gmail, right, or something.
if his email is like one of those ISP emails, like Comcast, then he can probably log into the webmail version of his email and get all that stuff back.
Yeah, sometimes depends on how it was set up. Could have
Yeah.
just been pop and all downloaded.
Yeah.
Or he can just email everybody and ask them to email all the email they've emailed.
Yeah. Just resend it. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh man.
Wait, here's another one though. Okay, so we have these Dell monitors at work, which the panel itself is great. They're 24-inch IPS panels. They're perfectly fine, but it's I don't know if they're not current because they're a few years old, but it's a classic fucking fuck up of UI design, right? So the power button on these Dell monitors, and I have one at home. I do it the same thing. It's right on the corner. So when you reach down past the corner and you bump the fucking button, it turns your monitor off.
Yeah.
And then if you have multi-monitor, then it's like, whoa, you lost one of the monitors. Let's move all the icons to the other monitor. And all your widgets, everything goes over the monitor. Then you have to turn on the fucking monitor, move everything back. But I'll do that like twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, can't you just hit like the reorganize icons button? Like right
Yeah,
mouse
but
click
I mean,
that doesn't
and
work with
then-
Gordon.
doesn't- no,
Have
but
you
it's
seen
not-
his desktop?
It's not just it's not the icons,
have.
but everything moves over. Like all your if you have like chat windows, everything's over on the other side.
Yeah.
But just because you reach for your Diet Coke, right, by your phone, you click the fucking thing off.
Well, I think the solution is to create some actual space.
Space?
No,
around
it doesn't matter. It's not that. The problem is,
I think we should provide a screen cap of like Gordon's.
Yeah, we
no,
need some
because there's
visual
NDA
context.
information on there.
Our YouTube people need some visual.
He's got like all the icon space that you can use, plus like icons in between the four, like,
there's
in
a
between
trick.
4 icons that he like manually places.
No,
there.
look, but if you're into the icons on the desktop, there's actually a trick. Because you're in Windows, and I'm sure it's the same in other operating systems, you can actually set the icon size from medium, which is default, to smaller, so you can get more icons on your desktop.
You know, you could also use folders and just put everything in folders.
Yeah, I do that every once in a while. I take all the icons, I'll put them into a folder that says March 2014.
That's not what I'm saying.
And then you keep adding folders.
You can't just like throw them into a garbage basket with a month on
That's
it.
what search is for. That's why. What do you think this is? This
Categorize
is not
them-
Yahoo Mail.
Categorize them
Gmail,
by subject.
you don't have to organize it. You just archive it, and you can do it by search, right?
Is that the approach to all the things on your desk too?
Yeah, I just do because I can't find stuff. I just do a search.
He has it somewhere. Whatever it is he needs, he definitely has it somewhere because there's so much stuff in his desk. Because there's so much stuff in his desk, he can never find what he's looking for.
So I know, Alaina, from what I've seen, you're pretty neat, really organized. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Try to be at work. Let's put it that way.
And then I know you've moved desks, so you sit right sort of in the same space as Gordon. And I'm just gonna say good luck to you, because his stuff is gonna swallow your desk up.
I think it'll be fine.
Oh, it'll be fine. I'll make it fine.
We always put the neatest person next to me for some strange reason. I think they think like the neatness will actually somehow, they're like the neat zone will overcome the fucking slob mess, but it doesn't, because when does that ever work?
Yeah.
We need the neat person next to you.
Chaos always wins.
To keep
Chaos
it contained.
always
Yeah, I
wins.
think it's basically more like a buffer zone, you know, so it doesn't like
Yes.
keep encroaching further
and destroy
out.
the whole office.
Yeah.
Suck the entire
it's
office.
a containment area.
Yeah.
Like I swapped desks, so I'm a little bit further than Gordon now, but I used to sit pretty much right next to him.
And his desk
In
was
the
a fucking
sun.
mess too.
And well, it's not as bad as yours.
He had less space. He had like a quarter
yeah,
of
sure.
the space to work
We'll
with.
see what that desk looks like in 6 months.
But I'm just saying that like as soon as I moved, like I started seeing some of your stuff creep over on my old desk.
Yeah, nobody's using that desk now, so there's like literally there's like 6 motherboard boxes.
Well, what
on
are we
there
trying
now.
to do? Save the space? I mean, we're not, you know, we
I'm-
have space is there to be used.
I'm not trying to be like judgmental. It's just
Josh.
observation.
Yes, sir. People don't know Josh should go crazy with that stuff.
Josh was a neat.
Look at this
freak.
box. What, can we get rid of it? I just got that box 5 minutes ago. What do you? Yeah.
Okay.
He'd be standing there with the razor blade. He wanted to cut the box up, and
He
he's
was
like, no,
he was a
I just-
minimalist.
Yes, a minimalist is what
Yes.
it is.
And he liked to give things away. So,
It's not a bad thing.
anyways, unless you guys have any more things you want to get off your chest, I think
No, that's good. I can save the other ones for next time.
okay. That about wraps it up then. You can check us out online at MaximumPC.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can email us at MaximumPCPodcast@gmail.com. You can send us a message at our 24-hour No BS podcast hotline at 1-877-404-1337, extension 1337. You can subscribe to us on Google Play, iTunes, Kindle, Nook, and Zinio. We're pretty much everywhere. On behalf of Gordon Maung, Tom McNamara, Alaina Yee, Clark Crisp, I'm Jimmy Thang, and thank you for listening.